Okay, so my talk is also based on my blog. I based it on someone else's blog. If you go on the information sheet that Jesse put up on Blackboard, he actually put some suggestions of what you could blog about. So I went through them all, and after reading Julie DeNeen's 30 surprising and controversial research findings about how students learn, I found that basically some of them I really agreed with, and some of them I thought were the most outrageous things ever to suggest to do in education. So basically what I decided to do was argue against some of them, support some of them, and just basically talk about them. So yeah, like I said, it's on Julie DeNeen's blog, and if you're, because I've only based this on about 5 of them, so if you're more interested in what she's put, then you can find it in Jesse's Introduction to Science of Education. So the first one is playing scary and violent video games help children master their fears in real life. Basically what I decided to do is research into how violent video games can affect people. So I have an older brother, and he was obsessed with video games, absolutely obsessed, but they all had to be like Grand Theft Auto or like Call of Duty. So you'd walk past his room and all you'd hear was him like screaming at this TV for people to die and whatever. It was really pleasant. So many theories state that playing these games would turn him into a violent person who was desensitized to crime. However, this didn't happen at all. He's probably like, he wouldn't hurt a fly. So Olson did a study into the psychological benefits to video games, and her paper has appeared in the Review of General Psychology. Basically, she stated that playing violent video games can increase your sociability because lads all get together and have like Xbox days or whatever they do. Kind of like girls have their little pizza days, guys have Xbox days. So they meet up with their friends to play their games, and it can also introduce competition, so they all fight against each other to see who can get the highest scores or whatever. However, people with differing, I think there's another slide, people with differing personalities can end up becoming desensitized to crime. So Phillips conducted research into how violent video games affect people and found that they do actually become desensitized from real crime. So they just basically think that because it didn't hurt in the game, then it's not going to hurt in real life. You could place this to a real life example of the murder of Jamie Bulger. I'm sure everyone's heard about it. So that took place after 2 boys watched a violent film. They actually reenacted parts of that film onto the little boy, effectively killing him. So the fact that some people are affected by violence surely means that it can't hold a place in education, because you can't determine someone's personality and how they're going to react to violent games until it actually happens. So you can't put it into education because of this. So actually, I do believe that video games can have a positive impact though. Like, my little cousins all play Nintendo DS, but the brain game, so I think that you can include that into education. However, I just think you need to be careful about the types of games you include. So the second one I did was economically disadvantaged children. That definitely, yeah, it does make sense, reap long-term benefits from preschool. So I actually did my work experience in a private nursery in Worcester, and I thought that the difference, because I have done work in state nurseries as well, and I thought the difference was just unreal. I mean, like, we took these kids once a week horse riding and swimming, and the things they were learning was like, basically state preschool just couldn't afford to give these children what this school was giving them. Obviously they're paying for it. But these 3- and 4-year-olds actually knew a lot more than I thought they would. Like, one little girl came up to me and recapped the dimensions of rectangles and squares to me. When I went home to my little cousin and I asked her if she knew what that means, she didn't have a clue. So they actually all had access to iPads as well, a bit like the video Jesse showed us of his grandson playing on his. They all knew how to use them, they all knew how to play the games on them, and they actually all told me that they had one at home that they could play with as well, which I'm aware that some children that go to state schools can afford to get iPads and things, but they don't have the access to them at school. And also, some families just cannot afford them at all. I mean, they are really expensive, and to give a child of 3 or 4 year old their own one, I just don't think they have the means to look after it properly. However, Randerson conducted a study on the variety of learning at home and how it can benefit children greatly at school. And he found that parents who were willing to read with their children every day and play counting games and shape games actually benefited their children greatly before they started school. So you could put these factors into that before the children actually get to school, or even if they are going to a school that doesn't have access to this high technology, you can still benefit them by playing educational games with them at home. So the third one was children who use electronic books show more cooperation and retain more information. So there was a scroll essay, The Effects of Electronic Books Designed for Children in Education. So it was a study, and basically some children were given the e-books and they read a story that involved sound and pictures and movement. Some children were just given a standard book and left to their own devices to read it. They actually found that the children who used the e-books retained more information, and actually they gained more cooperation within the groups they were working with. However, I think that reading a book, I used to love reading books when I was little, and I used to find that it enhanced my imagination, so I could imagine what the characters looked like and how they would sound and what the place would be like. If these books are providing that for the child, then surely there is a loss of imagination. However, children do have access, like I say, to iPads and Kindles, and there was even, my little cousin got one, an InnoTab, which apparently is a tablet designed for children. It has Skype and everything on it, so apparently they can use those as well. So the fourth one is video games can lessen disruptive behaviours and enhance positive development in ADHD children. So it's the Australian Journal of Education and Developmental Psychology. It was a study into the use of video games to help children with ADHD. The results indicated that the video game, which was actually designed to teach children how to control their heart rate and breathing, had a significant impact on their behaviour. However, the sample size was extremely small, so more research does need to be conducted. But it does hit back at the beliefs that video games can make children hyperactive, and there is actually one theory that ADHD is caused by video games. So this research actually counteracts that. So biases like this actually slow down research that can be undertaken into more controversial ways to learn. So we kind of need to do more research to stop these. So the final one is teaching kids at an early age is counterproductive to their learning, which is a study outlined by Gopnik. So it was a controlled study in which children were given a toy that actually did multiple things. So it squeaked and it played music and it lit up. The children were put into two groups. One were given a teacher and one was given just free rein to play however they wanted. The children who were given a teacher instructing them on how the toy worked did not explore it any further than the directions given to them. However, the students who were given the toy with no specific instructions discovered the way it worked, as well as several different other mechanisms that weren't immediately obvious. So psychologists are drawing the conclusion that early academic learning structured around directive teaching not only inhibits creativity but does stunt a child's natural curiosity to discover how the world works. And that's it. Yeah, is there any questions? Don't worry if there isn't, I'm fine with that. Yeah, but I don't think there is any.
I just think that some of those things are, the stuff that you've been talking about, I think it's amazing. It just...
Yeah, some of them, because I printed them. Yeah, I printed them all off, and as I was reading through them, some of them I was like, why did they even think to research into that?
Yeah. I've got a question. Your first, the first point you talked about was violent video games.
Uh-huh.
And then you said a little bit about the end, not incorporating violent video games into education. but how are they proposing that violent video games would be incorporated into education?
I don't think, well, if you, like in the blog, it doesn't actually say how they would incorporate it, because obviously she states that it lessens fears, but I decided to base it on how it can affect a person. So because she based her blog like on how, like, research findings into how they learn, I didn't really understand where she was coming from with how that was them learning.
You guys are seriously lacking creativity here. It teaches them how to steal cars, how to beat people up. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can learn.
Things in life.
Yeah.
How did you not think of that?
I'm surprised you didn't think
Why
of
did
that.
you
Say
think
this is
of that?
presentation C
Really?
for me.
This is presentation C.
Because otherwise, this is the thing, what we need to do, everybody needs to say, if they're doing a presentation, this is presentation C.
So you know where to put it.
Because I know I got full of them, and I know, okay, and she's
You
on
take
there
it
now.
out?
But,
Yeah.